The silence was unnerving. Commander Elias Rourke stared out the viewport of the Aegis, the rescue ship approaching the Martian surface. The red sands below offered no clues, no signs of life, no trace of the once bustling Helios research colony. The colony had gone dark 16 days ago. No transmissions, no emergency beacons, just silence. Earth Command sent the Aegis with a 7-person team to investigate. They weren't expecting a warm welcome, but they sure weren't prepared for the nightmare that awaited them. "We're in final descent," said Pilot Ray Kim, her voice steady despite the tension crackling in the air. "Touchdown in 40. Elias turned to the team seated in the rear of the command module. Dr. Lenya Voss, xenobiologist, Lieutenant Marcus Shaw, weapons and security, Engineer Juno Hart, Med Officer Casey Tran, and 2 security personnel, Avalini Ridge and Owen Clay. All of them seasoned, smart, and trained for contingencies. But no one had trained for the unknown. The colony came into view, a cluster of domes, half buried in dust. The outer perimeter fences were intact, and the landing pad lights flickered weakly in the low atmosphere. No movement, no response. Ray landed the Aegis gently, engines kicking up red plumes. The team suited up quickly, their suits sealed tightly against any possible biohazards. The Martian winds howled faintly outside as the airlock hissed open. They moved together, weapons raised, scanners out. The colony doors responded to their codes, still operational. That was the first unsettling clue. Systems were still alive, but where were the people? The interior was dark, lit only by flickering emergency strips along the walls. The smell hit them immediately, metallic, rotten, unnatural. Casey muttered something under her breath as her scanner blinked red. No life signs, but wait. Faint traces deeper inside. They advanced carefully. Every corridor told a story of chaos. Overturned carts, cracked screens, smeared blood. A silent riot. Elias clenched his fists. He'd known several of the researchers stationed here. Brilliant minds. Some were friends. They reached the central hub, and that's when the first noise echoed through the halls. A soft scuttling, like claws on metal. Everyone froze. Motion. 10 meters. "Hallway right," whispered Shaw, gun raised. Elias gave the silent signal. "Advance." The figure emerged from the shadows slowly. At first it looked human, a tall man limping. But as it got closer, the abnormalities became clearer. The skin was blotched and gray. Eyes were clouded over, glowing faintly. The mouth hung open, revealing rows of jagged teeth. Then it shrieked, a sound that did not belong to anything born of Earth. It lunged at them, unnaturally fast. Shaw fired first, the energy burst slamming into its chest. It stumbled but didn't fall. Owen hit it next, a clean headshot. The thing collapsed with a wet thud. Silence returned. No one spoke for a moment. "What the hell was that?" said Ray, her voice breaking. Dr. Voss knelt beside the corpse, her scanner already working. She peeled back the suit's gloves and touched the creature's skin. This was Dr. Julian Webb," she said slowly. "At least, it used to be." "Used to be?" Elias asked, dread creeping up his spine. Voss stood face pale. "There's a foreign organism embedded in the tissue. Some kind of spore network. It's rewritten his DNA. Mutated him." "Alien?" Elias asked. She nodded. "Possibly. This isn't viral. It's something else. Fungal, but intelligent. I need to run more tests." The team pressed on, now more wary. They discovered several bodies, all mutated, some torn apart by violence. But in the hydroponics lab, they found something far worse. A thriving colony of glowing blue spores clinging to the walls, sprouting from a blackened corpse. "Let us in." Elias froze. "Shaw." "Shaw is gone," it said. "We are the colony now. We remember. We know you. You can join us." Voss stepped forward, voice trembling. "Why are you doing this?" "To grow. To evolve. You brought us life. We only return the favor." It attacked. Elias and Voss fought back. Ray joined them, wielding a plasma cutter. The battle was brutal. The creature that was Shaw was nearly unstoppable. But Ray managed to sever its spine. It thrashed, then fell. Ray was bleeding. Badly. Voss scanned her, face falling. You're infected. Ray looked at Elias. Finish this. Burn it all. Don't let it reach Earth. They carried her to the med bay. As she drifted into unconsciousness, Voss prepared a lethal dose. Ray nodded once, and then she was gone. 3 vials of suppressant remained. 2 people. Elias and Voss stared at each other. Then Voss handed Elias all 3. I've already injected myself with pure spore extract, she said. I need to know if the suppressant works, truly works. I'll record everything. You're sacrificing yourself? I'm a scientist. Let me be useful. Elias wanted to argue, but he knew she'd made up her mind. He left her in the lab. Juno's final repairs had restored minimal power to the emergency shuttle, a 1-person pod, not meant for long voyages. But Elias set coordinates for orbit, hoping Command still had a listening satellite nearby. As he launched, he watched the colony fade behind him, the domes, the sand, the silence. The last thing he saw was Voss at the window, recording, documenting, as the spores crept up her neck. Elias reached orbit, transmitted the warning, and shut down all non-essential systems. He was drifting now, in the cold void, with 3 vials that might be the only hope humanity had. But behind his eyes, something was stirring. A faint itch. A whisper. He prayed the suppressant held. Voss collected samples, hands shaking. This is the source. It's not native to Mars. It must have arrived via a meteorite or deep core sample. The colonists must have accidentally activated it. Casey, checking vitals, looked up. And it spreads fast. Airborne, maybe. Everyone, check your suit integrity. But it was already too late. By the time they returned to the Aegis that night, Owen was vomiting violently. His suit showed micro-tears, possibly from the creature's first attack. Voss put him into quarantine. Hours later, he was screaming. By morning, he was gone, body transformed, face disfigured, eyes glowing just like the others. Shaw was forced to kill him when he broke through the glass. They tried to leave, but the Aegis wouldn't start. Systems failed. Power conduits fried. The infection had made its way into the ship's filters. They were trapped. Panic took root. Avellini went silent, barely speaking. Casey doubled her checks, running everyone through blood screenings. Juno worked tirelessly to repair the ship, fingers raw and blistered. Voss stayed in the lab, studying the spores, hoping to find a way to fight back. But the mutations were accelerating. Avellini was next. She began muttering to herself, scratching her arms raw. Then she disappeared during the night. Shaw found her an hour later, feeding on one of the old corpses in the med bay. They had to kill her, too. Now they were 5. Elias watched them all crumble. Casey's hands trembled as she administered sedatives. Ray barely spoke, only working on navigation systems. Shaw cleaned his rifle obsessively. Juno hadn't slept in 2 days. And Voss had locked herself in the lab. Elias confronted her. You need to tell us what you've found. She looked up, eyes hollow. It's a hive mind. The spores operate like a neural web. They feed on human tissue and merge with our nervous system. Once it's in, it spreads to the brain. Memory, cognition, everything gets overwritten. They become part of it. So there's no cure? Not yet. But I've isolated a compound that slows replication. It's unstable, but it might buy us time. Enough to escape? Maybe. But the ship's dead unless Juno fixes the core. That night, Juno collapsed in the engine bay. Elias rushed to her side, but one look at her eyes told him she was infected. She whispered, I tried, before her body convulsed violently. Shaw shot her before the transformation finished. For left. Shaw locked himself in the weapons locker afterward. Ray screamed at Elias, begging him to do something. But what could he do? They were rotting inside a corpse of a colony, surrounded by creatures that once were human. The next day, Casey vanished. No signs. No blood. Just gone. Ray broke down. We're next. One by one. That's what this thing wants. It's playing with us. Elias tried to keep order, tried to reassure her. But deep inside, he knew she was right. Voss administered her suppressant compound to herself and Elias. It burned through their veins like acid, but seemed to hold the infection at bay. They gave some to Ray, but she refused it. I'd rather die human than turn into one of them. The next 24 hours were quiet. Too quiet. Then Shaw returned, but not as Shaw. He stood at the lab door, body rippling with mutations. His voice was low, guttural.